Good morning, everybody. Just doing a quick sound check before we roll here in less than 1 minute. How's the sound out there in Radio Land? Welcome to Pete's. We're getting ready to roll here. Testing 1, 2. Here we go, everybody. Stand by. Great to have everybody on this morning. Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate it. And here we go. Listen closely.
Beach Talk Radio.
Lee County Commissioner Ray Sandelli.
I wanted to thank you because when I started on this path from the governor, one of the first things I did was your podcast, and it was a lot of fun. And you asked me questions that made me think about what the people wanted.
Beach Talk Radio.
Jim Nickel.
I did want to take a moment while I'm here to say thank you very much for your kind words during that election. I didn't have a chance to come up and say thank you right afterwards, and I do appreciate the opportunity to say that.
Beach Talk Radio.
Federal Judge Steve McGuire is here.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you for having me on the show. It's always great to be in Fort Myers Beach, and I'm honored to ask to be a part of such an acclaimed program.
Beach Talk Radio.
Dr. Wayne Edson.
I just want to say, Ed, that I support your show. I think you're providing a great service to Fort Myers Beach. Our local politicians may not always feel that way, but hang in there, because I learned a long time ago, politicians are temporary.
This is Beach Talk Radio.
Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. This is your captain speaking, Mean Gene. Mean Gene. The following will be a test of the ship's whistle, the sonar alarm, the cable alarm, and the atomic attack alarm.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to Beach Talk Radio. This is episode number 170. We are coming to you live from Pete's Timeout in Times Square on Fort Myers Beach. And right away, we want to make sure we thank all of our great local supporting business sponsors, including Island Oils, Fort Myers Tiki Tours, Nervous Nellies, Mangaritas, State Insurance USA, Sun Palace Vacations, La Ola Restaurant, Tuckaway Cafe, Blue Ribbon Events, Beach Pottery, Shuckers, and, of course, Pete's Timeout. And we're only 2 Saturdays away from our 3rd anniversary here on the beach. And we're going to get right into our show this morning. We have 2 fabulous guests, including school board member Chris Patrica. How are you? Welcome back to the show. We appreciate you coming on.
Time, right? He did. He got it right. Thank you. I'm used to it. I have a daughter named Patty. So a lot of people call me Patty because of the last name. They get confused, whatever.
So welcome back. We appreciate it.
I've been called worse.
Okay.
I bet you have.
So since the last time you were on when you were running for the school board to get reelected, and it's been quite a busy time since you were elected. How are things going?
Busy. Very, very busy. We have a lot of issues that we're facing. We did just hire an interim superintendent, so that should keep things calm for the next 6 to 9 month period. On Monday, the board will meet to determine which search firm we're going to hire to help us find a permanent replacement for Dr. Atkins.
So
I just wanted to, can you tell us a little bit about the interim superintendent?
Sure. His name is Dr. Ken Savage. He's been with the district almost his entire career. He did have a stint up in the Department of Education. After he was named Principal of the Year for the state of Florida, he went into James Stephens International Academy and put some fantastic programs in place to really turn that school around. He's a dynamic leader. When he's in a room, you know he's there. High energy, very innovative. He'll be a breath of fresh air for sure.
In your opinion, was it time for change in that position?
It's time for change because Dr. Atkins decided to retire.
Okay.
I would have been happy to keep Dr. Atkins in place. There's a couple of programs that he had in the works, the proximity plan, which I think we discussed a couple of times. A change in leadership when you're in the middle of something that has such a great impact on the community can be tough. But I'm confident that Dr. Savage can carry us through that.
Real quick on the school down here, the beach school, which is a small school, and somebody had mentioned at one time, I think it was at one of the committee meetings, that they were concerned, and I think I might have asked you this in an email, that they were concerned that being that it was so small, the board might think about closing it. What can you just to let people know or put them at ease, what you can tell us about anything that might happen like that.
Well, I can tell you that continuing to operate the beach school is very inefficient. It is very expensive to operate a school with so few students because we have to, for example, have one school resource officer in every school. So when you take the cost of that school resource officer and you divide it by 1,000 kids in a school, it's pretty efficient. You divide it by 300 plus students in a school, it becomes less efficient. And that's true for every category of spending in that school. That being said, efficiency cannot be the only reason why you make a decision. And the beach school is such a part of this community that I can't fathom a scenario under which I would support closing that school.
Plus too, if they're not here, it's in terms of efficiency. Now you've got to add all the busing and all of that.
100%.
So,
and there are ways to bring the population at that school up. There are people that live off the island who come onto the island for work every day. So if we did a better job of communicating the availability of seats in that school to those people, then perhaps they would want to bring their children onto the island with them every day when they come to work.
Whose job is that? The school's job or the school district's job or
yes,
everybody?
To both.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
to both. I would say if we're advertising for enrollment outside of the beach area, that would fall on the district.
Now, will that be part of the proximity plan that you were talking about? Would that help with that?
Actually, the plans that we've looked at so far wouldn't impact the beach school in the sense that it's too expensive to bus the kids in. So what we would be looking for is parents who are already driving onto the island so they could bring their children with them.
What's the closest school to the island that they would take them to?
Lexington
Heights, maybe. Lexington's a middle school, so probably Heights Elementary, I would think.
Got it. Now we live in Gateway, and they just finished building a fabulous state-of-the-art facility out there that's gigantic. They have their own. Looks like they have their own football field. I mean, I know the Gateway original field it wasn't even a field. It was like it was just a small outside area. So they really are upgrading over there. So my question is, with all the people moving to Southwest Florida, are there enough schools for all the kids?
No. And that brings us back to a discussion I think I had one of the first times I was on your show, the half-penny sales tax. The half-penny sales tax was passed to address the need to build schools. And we have, at that time, we had 7 schools planned. And right now, I can tell you what we've done with it. We added, I think, 500 seats at Lehigh Senior High School. We built Gateway High School. We built a new middle school out in the east. We are building another elementary school out in the east. We are building a pre-K through 8 in Estero. We are expanding our career and technical education centers in Fort Myers and in Cape Coral. And we're looking to build a new career and education college that would be an annex of Fort Myers Tech out east. So that's just what we have planned right now. As time goes on and growth continues, we'll certainly be building more.
Well, and I think people are coming in droves.
Yes.
I mean, I would imagine it's hard to even predict at this point, but it sounds, and I think it's true. I think people they're going in the east zone.
Yep.
That zone is really blowing up. So how do you plan for something that's so difficult to calculate?
Well, we've got a fantastic system that looks at where students are moving and where the needs are. And in addition to that, when you're looking at maintenance of buildings, we have a capital plan that takes the board's values with regard to our infrastructure and prioritizes where the money will go and where the improvements will be made based on what the board's values are. And so, there used to be a sense that, well, this principal got I don't know, a new roof because, the board liked him the most. Well, any kind of notion of that kind of favoritism is taken out of the process. It's all analyzed, and principals can look and see, okay, well, I didn't get my roof because this building had a roof that was about to collapse, if that makes sense.
So
much more objective and transparent.
Data driven and
Correct.
So where's the biggest need for a new school right now, in your opinion?
We have, I live in Estero, so I'm familiar with the South Zone. We are at 117% capacity for the schools that serve people who live in Estero. So there's a huge need there. And then out east, there's a huge need as well. I can't tell you specifically where out east. We own land in some places, and then we don't have land in other places. So if I tell you we need a school here, here, and here, that sort of sends a signal to the people that own that land. Oh, the school district.
It's got a crisis going up. Yeah.
And so I necessarily want to go there. But in the West, we don't have quite as many capacity issues right now. That being said, it's one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. And so we're going to have to shift our focus out there eventually.
Are you happy with the education the kids get in the Lee County School District?
100%. I'm very, very, I mean, I can speak for my own 4. I am incredibly proud of the education they're getting. And when I talk to people from where I'm from, which is the Northeast, and I tell them the programs my kids are engaged in, they just can't believe it. International Baccalaureate and Ace Cambridge and AP is pretty common, but it's really, really widely available in our school system. The dual enrollment opportunities that we have for our kids, the comprehensive high schools where you have a slew of career and technical education programs available to high school students. I mean, it's unheard of in other parts of the country. So yes, I'm very proud of the quality of education our kids are getting.
What one thing would you like to see improved in the education?
I'd like to see even more opportunities for career and technical education. Yeah. And that is a focus. That was a focus of the outgoing superintendent, Dr. Adkins. And I haven't had the direct conversation with Dr. Savage about it, but you're seeing huge development in the Alico corridor. We have tons of manufacturing companies coming in, and you're seeing expansion of existing businesses in Lee County. We need to meet the demand that these companies have for employees.
Well, I know I was at an automotive chain getting my car worked on, and they were just desperate for mechanics. That I struck up a conversation. He's like, if you know anybody, we just need people. So I think that that is a big growth area. That technical, the 2-year and the technical 1-year certificate programs is really a need for quality employees out there.
And the other area, I think, I don't know if it's improvement as much as it is something we need to be doing going forward, is we really need to harness the opportunity that was presented in COVID. Because of COVID, we had to shift and pivot and rely much more heavily on technology than we ever have before. That really accelerated our use of technology. There were a lot of wins and there were some losses. There were some problems there, but we need to embrace the opportunity for innovation to really revolutionize the way we conduct public education. And I'm going to push hard for that.
Do you think the kids were any worse off education-wise when they had to learn online?
Yes, absolutely. There are some students that absolutely thrive in that environment, and we need to preserve those opportunities for those kids. But there were some kids that really struggled in that environment. And so, yes, I think that as we come back this year, we as a district need to be prepared to meet every kid where they are when they walk in the building at the beginning of the school year. Some kids continue to fly, and some kids really, you're going to see huge gaps.
But going forward, to be clear, there is no Home Connect.
There is no Lee Home Connect. That being said, one of the first conversations I had with Dr. Savage was, please put it on staff's radar to be talking about the use of Lee Home Connect in the event of a hurricane.
Right.
Because if you look at Irma, I want to say our buildings were closed for 12 or 14 days.
Yeah.
Electricity was restored almost entirely countywide after day 8. There's no reason for our kids to not be learning. Just because we have damage to buildings, we can continue to learn. It's not ideal, but it's certainly better than schools being closed entirely to kids.
Right.
For those that don't know, what is the school district budget?
$1.92 billion.
$1.92 billion. That's with a B, $1 billion.
That's with a B, and it will be higher next year. The state did allocate more money per student next year. And of course, you mentioned we're growing. So the more students that come in, the bigger the budget is because we get more money from the state for each of those students.
And with home price, this might be a dumb question, but with the value of the homes going up, does that bring more money to the school district too?
Not necessarily. So we have what's called the required local effort, and the state monitors that closely. And typically they roll back that required local effort, making it so that we get the exact same amount of money that we got the year before.
Very cool. Do you think
that was not a stupid question? That's a really good question because most people don't understand how RLE works.
Do you think that the school teachers are getting paid enough?
I think that starting pay for teachers is a significant improvement. You know, the budget that was passed last year brought starting teachers up to 47.5. I think that's great. I would teach as a starting teacher at 47.5. I would feel
Come
like
a long
I was
way.
properly compensated. The problem is that was only starting teachers. So we've got teachers who have been in the system for decades and they didn't receive the same kind of raise. So we need to
figure that out.
To equalize that across experience levels.
So let's talk about the Alfie Oaks thing. Is that still in court or is it resolved?
It is still in court.
So you can't really say much about it other than
It's still in court.
It's been in court for quite a while.
Well, that's court.
Yeah.
Court takes quite a while. And I will repeat what I said to you
Sure.
last time I was on the show. I cannot wait to stand in front of the public with a microphone in my hand and explain the other side of the story.
Yes. So are the masks done?
Masks are done.
Okay. So do kids still show up with masks because their parents feel more comfortable or what?
Yeah, they're done now that school's out. Like,
correct.
Yeah.
You
starting
still had,
next year.
Okay. You still had to wear them until the end. So is this
Correct.
a state thing or the district can make its own decision on the masks?
We made our own decisions on the masks. We have strong guidance from the state for next year to not require masks, but the state didn't provide that strong guidance. When I say strong guidance, it's kind of like a mandate.
Yeah.
They did not provide that mandate for this school year. It's for the next school year.
Got it. So there are 2 school board members that have asked the governor to step in or whatever. I don't even know what the proper wording is. And do we need to have people asking the governor to watch over the school board? Is something going on that people need to know about where the governor needs to step in? What is that all about? I know it was Gwen Gittens the first time and Melissa Giovanelli the second time. Why does the governor need to oversee the county?
I mean, I can't speak for my colleagues. I can't speak for what their motivations were. But I can tell you that as a board, we vet all of the decisions that we make. And sometimes it's a 6-1 vote. Sometimes it's a 4-3 vote. Sometimes it's a 7-0 vote. Mm-hmm. And when you're that 1 or that 3 that is against the decision that was made by the board, sometimes that's hard to accept. And being on the losing end of a vote doesn't mean you weren't heard. It doesn't mean you weren't respected. It just means that the board has made a decision, and then we as a board need to move forward. I mean, I've been on the losing end of a vote as well. Mm-hmm. But once the board makes a decision, we really all need to galvanize behind that and support it and move forward.
And there was an ethics complaint filed against Melissa. Is that something you can talk about, or is it something that you filed or somebody else filed? Okay.
I did not file that, and that's really, I would prefer for you to talk to Melissa about that.
Okay. Because somebody hinted yesterday that you filed it. I'm glad we straightened that out, that you didn't file it. And so the other thing was, did you have something you want to? The big news the last few months was this poster thing. Can we talk about the poster thing?
I'm so glad you brought it up. Yes,
okay,
we can absolutely talk
about
it.
Well, she said she was so glad you brought it up.
All right, that's, we'll take that away.
What
so
word
every
am I
time,
supposed to avoid?
No. Every time
we
ask a question and someone says that's a good question, we have a little competition of who gets the most good questions.
And if I win the bell thing, she has to kiss me on the lips later, and it's a whole crazy love thing.
That was a great question.
Thank you. That's a French kiss right there. So anyway, the thing that confused me from the beginning of that, and it's not my beat, but I do tune in to watch the meetings, was that it almost seemed like something was in the manual, and then a board member acted as if she didn't read the manual or didn't see it get in the manual, and then the community was in an uproar about it. Can you kind of rewind us to how that whole thing started?
Sure. I mean, it is our responsibility as board members to consume and understand everything that we vote on. It was a 7-0 vote to pass that code of conduct. And I personally, I will speak to you as one of 7. I will tell you my thought process. I don't have a problem with that poster being in the code of conduct, because the purpose of the code of conduct is for parents to sit down with their kids at the beginning of every school year and go through the code of conduct. I actually, as a parent, appreciate it because it forces me to have conversations with my kids that I may have been negligent about having, throughout the school year. It talks about the consequences of certain acts in the schools, which can be, rise to the level of being criminal.
Back up and tell us what was on the poster so people...
So it was, it talked about LGBT issues. It talked about, it was really a best practices thing. It wasn't a policy. It was guidance for teachers and parents with regard to students who identify as LGBT in the school district of Lee County.
From now, that poster was in the manual, was it on the walls at the school?
And that was what I didn't understand. I didn't know that the page would be taken out of the code of conduct and put on the walls in schools.
Oh,
as
somebody
posters.
did that. The district didn't say, okay, we're going to
Correct.
print out 50,000 posters, and
Correct.
oh, somebody did that, and that's how it all kind of started. It was in the code of conduct.
And there's a big difference to me between it being in the code of conduct, where a parent can have a conversation with a child. You know, if my kid's in 3rd grade, I'm going to skip that page.
Sure.
If my kid's in 5th grade, it's a really good opportunity for me to talk about these issues, find out where they are, and then lead the conversation. That's the key. Parents have the right to lead conversations surrounding these issues. If it's a poster in a school, to me, it's inviting a conversation about very intimate issues that should be led by parents.
Right, without the parents.
So you said it was a 7-0 vote to include it in the code of conduct. Was it the same 7 people that were up on, that were at the meeting where the complaints were coming from the community, just to be clear? Because somebody said, I didn't know that was in there. One of the board members said that, which kind of was perplexing to me. It was like, well, didn't you read it? I mean, you put the damn thing together. Shouldn't you have? So did okay. So
I can't speak to her activities, but I can tell you as a parent, I go through that code of conduct with my kids every single year. And I do it for 2 reasons. I do it, again, because it's a good opportunity for us to discuss stuff that maybe I wasn't discussing. And in addition, when I sign it, I am saying I have reviewed this with my child, and then my child has to sign it. So if I sign it without going through it with them, it's teaching them it's okay to just sign something.
Right.
And so that might be a little crazy, but they hate it. I mean, the beginning of every school year, when I make them go through that thing, they hate it. But
how difficult is it for a school district and teachers to have to talk about that issue?
And not only that issue, but navigate some of the other social issues that are out there.
We never had to worry about that.
I
don't remember worrying about
the
that.
best question that's been asked
stop.
all day.
Now you're just goofing around. Oh. All right. I'll kiss you later.
How difficult is it? Teachers aren't addressing these subjects with kids. You know, if a kid walks into a classroom and trusts their teacher and has a strong relationship with the teacher, the student might bring it up. Mm-hmm. And the point of this guidance was to help teachers understand how to address those issues for kids.
What is the rule? If a student comes into a teacher with that type of question, what's the rule?
Encouraging them to talk to their parents about it.
Good.
That's the sense that I've gotten,
is that they're encouraging.
I understand, but there are some areas where I do have concerns. We had a form that I use my son as an example all the time. My son could go to a teacher or a counselor or an administrator and say, I now identify as a girl. I want you to call me Jennifer from now on. I want you to refer to me as she and he. And he could sign that form along with an employee of the school, and I never have to sign it. So
that needs to change, though, right?
That 100% needs to change, and I believe that we're working on changing that. What you need to understand is that the motivation of staff to, in some instances, keep the parent out of it, so to speak. There are parents who will physically and mentally, criminally abuse their children over this issue. But we already have laws in place to protect kids in those instances. And those laws include LGBT issues and kids who might be abused. It's not the
teacher's role to decide which parent's going to beat a kid or not, right? I mean, how do you know? How do you make that decision? How do you know that?
Well, it's not in advance of, but as a reporter, you're mandatory reporting if you have concerns.
Correct. There are ways to protect every single kid in our system, regardless of what issue they bring to the table, while still preserving parents' rights. And that's really the key for me, is I felt like some of what we were doing was cutting parents out of the process. And you know that is one of the most fundamental rights in the Constitution, to raise your children as you see fit. And I want to protect that right while protecting kids.
So that's still in the code of conduct.
No.
Oh, it was taken out.
That was never in the code of conduct. Okay. That was considered a counseling tool that could potentially be used by schools. And it's my understanding that a parent signature line has been added.
Oh, okay. So the code of conduct came up again, I believe, in another meeting. And that's when the parents filled the auditorium. And I mean, I understand wanting to go there and speak and the whole thing, but it was really, some of it was ridiculous the way they act. I mean, they act out just so that they could be taken out by the police and stuff like that. So, and you guys almost, I think, closed the meeting or you suggested to change the meeting because it was getting crazy. So take us back to that meeting and what the purpose of that was.
the lawyer for the counsel for the board, I mean, she just had to a couple of times stay calm and remind everybody of it was rough. It was rough.
Well, the lack of civility that we've seen in the boardroom has been exacerbated, I believe, by COVID and COVID fatigue.
Sure.
People are angry, and they are 100% motivated to let you know how angry they are. And that's part of the job. You have to sit and you have to take that. I was very disappointed that first meeting when 60 people spoke, 60, 59 of them were adults. One was one of our students, and he was heckled and booed by the adults in the room.
It was so painful to watch.
It was very disappointing. And the other thing that has struck me as rather odd is every one of our students who has spoken on this issue was unaware of the poster. They didn't know it was part of the code of conduct. So you have LGBT supporters saying it's all about the kids, and you have those who are against the poster saying it's all about the kids when the kids knew nothing about it. So it's really about the adults, and it has very little to do with children. So that's the other part that's been really disappointing to me is the use of children to push an agenda.
Oh, for sure.
On both sides.
Yeah.
On both sides.
So the code of conduct that you guys were talking about in those meetings, did the page come out?
It did.
Okay, so that page is now. So how do you deal with it now?
So we are going to be holding community forums throughout the entire county, where we're going to turn the community feedback into data. We have this guy down at the district. His name is Adam Malloy, and he is able to turn community feedback into data at these community meetings. And so the board can look at that, staff can look at that, and they can determine what does this community want with regard to these issues. And then they will put forth new guidance, and it won't be focused just on LGBT. It will be focused on all of the issues that our kids face when it comes to bullying, intimidation, and harassment.
So in the school district, is it the men's room and the ladies' room in all the schools? So the parents don't have to worry about, there was some other community bathroom too that people were talking about. Was that a rumor or is that?
No. I mean, we have gender neutral bathrooms, so to speak, in staff areas throughout every school. So if a student, for whatever reason, doesn't feel comfortable using the bathroom that goes along with their biological gender, any student can go to a principal and say, can I use this bathroom? Can I use this locker room?
Regardless of if it was, maybe they were afraid of somebody. It would have nothing to do with.
But it's like a one-person bathroom, probably,
Correct.
right? Okay, it's not where they're all. Okay, there could be. All right, I don't want to get into that. Okay, so the other thing is that the thing that's starting to gain national attention is the competition between. I have to make sure I say this right. If a man becomes a woman, and then that person wants to compete with women. That's really unfair. I mean, to me, I think it's unfair because whether you agree with me or not, I feel like men and women, their bodies are different. Men are, in most cases, not every case, stronger and faster. And again, not in every case. And it's just unfair to women. To me, in my opinion, it's unfair to women and girls when a person that was born a guy gets to compete against the women and they feel like they should be allowed to. What is the school district's policy on how to deal with that if it ever, maybe it has come up, but if it ever comes up?
Transgender sports. I'm not aware that a transgender athlete has requested accommodations in the school district of Lee County. I'm actually wearing my Florida High School Athletic Association Board of Directors shirt. I sit on the FHSAA board where we make these rules.
Wow.
The policy that's in place currently that will be changing after July 1st, because of the new law that was passed at the state level, is that if a student identifies as transgender and a girl, for example, wants to play on the boys' soccer team instead of the girls' soccer team, they have to go in front of a panel at the state level. The panel is made up of medical doctors and counselors and athletic directors and coaches, and that panel decides whether that child is allowed to compete. Now, you know that law, that policy was essentially rendered illegal by the new law that was passed at the state level that bans any transgender participation in sports whatsoever. The additional difficult layer to all of this is the guidance that we got from the executive branch, or the Department of Education, Federal Department of Education, regarding the definition of gender identity, gender identification, and sexual orientation. So what they're saying is if you don't let a biological girl who identifies as a boy play on the boys' team, you're going to lose federal funding.
Do you think
Now,
that's
does that
right? Do you think that's right?
Well, I was an athlete my whole life, and I can't fathom playing basketball or soccer. Those were the two contact sports
Sure,
I played.
sure.
I can't fathom playing against a boy. I was a high jumper. I probably could have high jumped higher than most of my male counterparts in high school, but not in college. I never could have.
Right. What were you going to say?
I don't know. Well, I guess one of the things that I've seen come up is if kids are competing for scholarships. I mean, how do you handle that? Because that's going to feel unfair to some kiddos.
Right. And I think that that's what you're seeing in the case that's coming out of Connecticut. I think you had a couple of girls who were poised to win a state championship, and all of the recruitment and hoopla that goes with that lost to transgender girls. So biological boys who identified as girls, they lost state championship to them. And I think there's a lawsuit surrounding that. But the NCAA has come out with a strong statement that they're supporting transgender participation in sports. And there's some, I don't think national championships can be held in the states that do not permit transgender participation in sports.
I think girls are going to be affected more because
well, I also was reading that it's an extremely small percentage of
doesn't matter.
cases
Doesn't
that
matter.
this does happen.
That one girl
Right,
that
but
feels
I'm
like
saying,
that means
I understand. I understand.
It's just to me, it just doesn't compute. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But
it is really hard. And, it was one of the issues that came to us from the community. Why are you supporting this? We have to follow the state rules. If we want our children to be eligible for and to participate in state championship series in any sports, we have to follow the rules of the FHSAA.
Right.
I'm not willing to deny our children the opportunity to do that for, like what you said, a very, very, very small percentage of kids in the state of Florida for whom this is an issue. And the same is true when it comes to the money from the federal government. I mean, the money that we get from the federal government serves our most vulnerable children.
Mm-hmm.
That is IDEA money, Individuals with Disabilities and Education Act money, so kids with learning disabilities who require special programs, and feeding kids. I mean, those are our federal dollars. So if we buck the federal system and we say, no, we're not going to take your money, we're going to do what we want to do, our most vulnerable kids suffer. So it's a tough balance.
Are you enjoying being a school board member? It didn't look fun the last two times I tuned in.
I'm living the dream.
Oh, no, you're not living the dream, but it is nice to see, despite some of the ruckus behavior, people get involved the way they were involved. I'm sure there are times where that room is not nearly as full as it was.
There are times that the room is not nearly as full. But what's important for people to understand is that the people that show up at school board meetings do not represent everybody that I have to represent.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So there might be, a group that shows up every meeting, regardless of the issue, and they're very vocal and they have a lot to say. But I'm also running into people at Pete's Time Out on a Saturday morning, or in the grocery store, or at church, and they have varying views on what's being decided at the school district. And it's really important for me to represent everybody, not just the vocal ones, if that makes sense.
Now, we talked about a couple of the hot topic buttons that are controversial. What are some of just the positive things that have been going on and that you look forward to in the next year with the school board?
Well, I told you before the show started, we had the Golden Apple Teacher celebration last night, which is a really, really beautiful event. It's formal. So the 6 teachers that win the Golden Apple Award are dressed in gowns or suits. One of last night's male winners was a major, I think, in the Army.
Oh, very cool.
And so he was in full uniform.
Where are the pictures of all this? Are they going to be somewhere like
yes.
Okay.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I would think that if you get on the news press at some point this morning, you'll be able to see
That's
it all.
That's a great program.
I mean, the speech he gave, it made my husband cry.
Wow.
I mean, that's how outstanding it was. So as difficult as the job can be on a daily basis, events like that really give you the energy and the positive outlook to continue understanding why you do what you do.
Did we miss anything that you wanted to talk about or mention to the millions and millions of beach goers out there?
I don't
we
think so.
always appreciate you coming on and filling us in on what's going on, And you've always been great to the show. So thank you so much for coming all the way down here.
Yeah, and thanks for, to you and all the board members for doing it, because I'm sure there is a lot of criticism and not a lot of praise. So, thanks to all of them.
One more question, I'll say it was great.
No, you see, you're a plant now, Chris. You're a plant.
I'm not a plant, but,
So what are your plans for later today?
Excellent question. I'm actually leaving here immediately to go to my daughter's swim meet. So
Very nice. Very
thank
nice.
you for asking, because
awesome.
She loves that, and it'll be a lot of fun to go
Awesome.
there.
And if people want to give you feedback, your email address at the school district is
CHRISNP@leeschools.net. So chrisnp@leeschools.net.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you guys
and
for
good
having
luck
me.
in the
so
meet
much.
today.
Appreciate
Chris Patrica, everybody.
Yay.
Lee County School District board member. We appreciate her coming on. That's like her 4th appearance down here, and it's really nice to have her on. And Judy's coming up next. I'm going to read Beach Pottery, let everybody know about our great friends at Beach Pottery. You might see them on the 4th of July. And they've got pots, and more pots, and planters of every size from $5 to $500, indoors and outdoor pots, and they're from Vietnam. My favorite pots come from Vietnam because, when I was over there fighting the Chi Coms and all that, and no, I was never over there. I hardly leave Gateway, so I don't know how I would get over there. Alana purchases directly from the manufacturers, so she has the best pricing in town as well as the best selection. Over an acre of pots, furniture, and artwork, and they have the guy with the chainsaw in the back whipping the things up into nice little things you can hang up or stick out in your front yard or on your front porch or in your lanai. Over 8,000 pots, and I'm sure you've driven by it and you've seen them all out there because they're kind of located as you're making the left-hand turn to get down to the beach. And the phone number there, if you want to call and say, how do I get a pot from Vietnam, is 437-4211. 437-4211. So thank you very much to Beach Pottery. We can move that over. Very nice. And ladies and gentlemen, I've been waiting a long time for this interview. The city manager from Sanibel. She's going to get a big round of applause here from our artificial audience out there. Judy, I am not even going to try and say your last name because I will butcher it.
It's very easy.
It's
It's
Zamora.
Mamra, a mom in the middle.
Yeah, that's really easy. But thank you very much. How are you?
I'm great.
Just by that introduction, I know I'm barely going to get a word in here
That's right.
edgeways. So,
welcome, and we're glad to have you on.
Yeah.
That's
Thank
probably
you.
all I'll get to say.
Thank you for
Thank-
coming to the dark side.
I
Just kidding.
wouldn't say that. But before we start your official questions, I want to thank you very much. When we lost our street superintendent a few months ago, who had been with the city for so many years, and the wonderful posts that you put up in recognition of Lance Luna. And, a lot of people, when the type of awards that Sanibel gets year after year about how beautiful our town is, and that it's really those working men and women who deserve the recognition and very seldom get it. So thank you for sharing that post. That was very, very
Appreciate you
nice of
saying
you.
that. So you're recently back from vacation.
Yes.
Well, so tell us about how your vacation was, where you went, and you're so great on social media, so we were following along with you. But
Well, I had not had a vacation like many, many, many people here the last 17 months. So I had a family wedding in Ohio, and I drove up and took an opportunity to reflect on the beautiful countryside and do all the things you do on vacation, eat some good food and see some nice people. But mostly an opportunity to reunite with my family that we're all together for the wedding. So that was just fabulous.
And I just wanted to say, so you're originally from Ohio. You went to Ohio State University.
I did my grad work there, but all 3 of my degrees are in Ohio. Yeah.
3 degrees. What are
Yes,
your
sir.
degrees in?
My undergrad's from Kent State University in communication, and my master's in public finance and public administration at Ohio State. And then I have a Juris Doctor degree from Capital University.
How's this football team going to do this year?
We always do good.
That's true. That's true. Doesn't matter who the coach is.
Even in a bad year, Ohio
Yeah.
State has good football.
So you, like I mentioned before, you're super active on social media, which I love that as the city manager, you're active on social media. You don't really see that very often, but you're doing the ding darling stuff a lot. And you seem like you like to be around bugs and butterflies and things like that. So, and you're a photographer too, it seems like. So kind of tell us about how that kind of mixes into being the city manager, or why it's important for you to be doing things like that.
Well, my undergrad actually started as a photography major, and I started working for a newspaper when I was 15 as a photographer and a photojournalist, and a long, windy path that took me into public administration instead. But that idea of communication, and that is the area I studied as an undergrad, I think you can never over communicate with the public, your friends, your neighbors. And, there's a lot of bad that comes out of social media, but I think it's also one more avenue to communicate both with your residents as well as with your, again, like I said, I have a very large extended family, so it's how we stay in touch as well. Out of all the posts I ever did when we had Hurricane Irma, we opened, a lot of people still did not have water and power back on the island. And so we opened the showers at the Sanibel Recreation Center, both for hot showers as well as phone chargers and a cooling center if you didn't have air conditioning. And to announce it, I came out of the shower with my hair wrapped up and a towel around me. And that's still the number one post of ever was coming out of the shower.
That's funny.
It. So that people really seem to, not making light of it, but trying to, really get the information out there.
And how important is that to have a bit of a sense of humor, to be able to communicate with people when you're in a position that's so serious most of the time?
Well, that doesn't mean everybody's going to agree on every point, but you hope to leave every discussion with a recognition that sometimes people have different opinions and everyone's giving their best. And we have just so many educated, well-meaning, generous, philanthropic citizens on Sanibel. It's hard to not have a good conversation, a good communication out there, but it's just been a wonderful 20 years. And if you think they communicate on social media, you should see our emails because we get a high volume of emails as well. And I do my best to keep up on a daily basis with our email input.
So tell us how you got the job 20 years ago. Where were you doing at that time? And what made you, well, this is a dumb question. What made you want to come to Sanibel to be the city manager?
Well, I had been a chief of staff for a large city up north, and that mayor decided not to run for office. And as chief of staff, your job goes, with that elected official. So I was looking, and the chief of police and the fire chief that I was working with there had just come back from a fishing trip here. And they said, don't you have a sunset picture of Sanibel on your desk? And you always said you wanted to be a city manager. And I'd worked in city manager form of government. And so I was looking, even though I was only in the first week of my search. But from the Sanibel side, they had 6 city managers in the 5 years before I started. So, which is not... it's about higher than the normal turnover, but it's a job where the average is usually 3 to 5 years tenure, and you can get a revolving door syndrome, sometimes. So it's like some marriages and partnerships. The chemistry has to be right, and sometimes the chemistry changes on other parties. You might have an election where since I've been there, the election's never been let's throw the bum out and get a new city manager. So I come to work every day trying to do my best job, but they were looking for a city manager and I was looking for a job, so the two worked out.
Do you remember who interviewed you?
I definitely, the 5 city council members at the time.
Who was the mayor at the time?
Nola Tice.
Okay. Did you, as you're getting ready to retire, do you remember exactly the number of elected officials there were in that? Or approximately?
I know for sure 7 mayors. Okay. And of course, the longest tenured was our now county commissioner, Kevin Ruane. And every single day I worked with Kevin Ruane was just a pleasure and an honor. And I think an excellent partnership, and really enjoyed working with his leadership. And then in all of them, but his was just the longest while I was there, but just a stellar human being as well as elected official. And then over 15 or 16 city council members, but definitely 7 different mayors.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, now I think I was reading that when you moved here, was it the week of 9/11?
That's the week they called to offer me the position. And when they called me, I was actually sitting in the Ohio State. They called me on a Saturday. Council had a meeting on a Saturday after the interviews to decide who they were going to offer the position to. And I was sitting at a football game at Ohio State, and they called me there. And I was in the stadium, and they called and they said, we'd like to offer you the position. There's one caveat, and everybody probably doesn't know this, but by state law in Florida, you have to have your budget adopted by October 1st. And they called and said, there's one issue. We don't have an adopted budget yet. And this was on like September 9th.
So
Could you come down and get a budget adopted?
Okay. I was going to say, did they tell you that because they didn't have money to offer you, or because they wanted
just
you
that
to
it
do the
needed to
budget?
get done.
They're like, we're calling you, and you got like
And you're gonna be
20
busy.
days, and you're
Yeah.
out of state. We need a. I said, well, I can fly down and get a budget. That now the city I was working with had a $1.3 billion budget, so doing a budget much smaller, I thought, yeah, we can get that done in 20 days.
And then, I'm sorry, was September 11th that Tuesday?
That was
or the
that Tuesday. Yeah, so I had taken
So you
off
couldn't fly
work.
down.
No, exactly. And not only that, all the planes were down, and it was that era, just like at the beginning of COVID, where you weren't sure.
Right.
I mean, the stock market closed for
Sure.
a day or two, so
Right,
you're
right.
like, should I take my stock certificates
Right,
with me? Should
right.
I, what clothes?
Well,
what do I
plus,
put in
like,
this?
should I be moved? Like,
Right,
this would be I mean, I would be like, I don't know if this is a good time to make a big shift right now.
Right. And so it was, and everybody else was other focused appropriately. So, but that's when I moved down, and that's when I started.
Nice. So 20 years is a long time. How have you been able to maneuver the different politicians? It's such sometimes it could kind of be a political hardball kind of thing, because you never know when there's an election how things are going to change, how people think, and you're kind of in a groove, and then you have to kind of figure out who this new person is. So how were you able to maneuver that and do that for 20 years?
Well, a couple things. One is, personally, I've went into every job. If you're going to be in the public sector like this, realizing that at any given day, someone could come in and say, this is your last day, and you just have to have that backup plan and be confident enough that if I had to go find other work, I could do it. So I've never went in every day worried about that. And then the second part is, I think there's many aspects of the Sanibel charter, which of course for a city, the charter would be for the state or national is your constitution.
Mm-hmm.
It lays out the duties and how the city's organized. On Sanibel, the council runs nonpartisan. They run without wards and districts. And they it's one of the few cities in the state of Florida, they receive zero compensation. So you tend, and to my experience, is all the council members run because they want to make the community a better place.
Right.
So if everybody starts on the same mission, we want to make the city a better place, and all that partisan activity is put aside, you already start, I think, with a leg up. And so for that, I say our Constitution and our community is very involved and kind of keeps everybody in City Hall in check.
And it's a strong manager situation at Sanibel too, right? Explain what that means for people that might not know.
It's the manager council form of government. So there's different forms of government you can have. Several years ago, for example, the city of Fort Myers transitioned to having a professional manager, but you still have a legislative body. And if you go to the charter of any city, you can see what duties and responsibilities sit with the city council. And then on the Sanibel charter, it specifically says the day-to-day operations are managed by the city manager. And it specifically even speaks in the charter that no council member can
talk to a staff member, right?
Work with the staff members, interfere with that day-to-day operations. And that's also provisions in my contract as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because you could be directing somebody, or any manager can be, and then since a council member calls and tells them to do something different, the person that's working is in such a bad spot. What do they do? So
well, and
that
a big
makes sense.
part of that to succeed, though, is as the manager making sure you are getting that correct information very quickly to those elected officials when they need it.
Here's what's going on.
And then we have always, on Sanibel during my tenure, one of the basic tenets I have followed is that all the council and all the elected officials should get all the same information. So if council member A says, I'd like to see a 5-year analysis of traffic accidents, I send it out to all and say, a council member asked for this. So we don't get that, I got you at a council meeting. You don't have surprises, and everybody's working off that same facts.
Why do you think Sanibel doesn't have any homeless? Or maybe they do.
I was going to say that's not true.
Oh,
We've
sorry.
actually had some experiences in my tenure there. It's something that we address and have worked on. But when you have a climate where people think you can stay year round, and you have an area where people have, I've dealt with the homeless issue in some northern cities, and, there's a certain factor that comes in with the weather, et cetera, that here, I mean, we've had people in my tenure, we've had issues where people have made a single person, not a group of people, temporary housing at a public beach, or someone living out of their van at somewhere. We've had somebody living off of a bench for a while. And we have invested a lot of money into restrooms. And we had a time where one person was using our public restroom as basically their home. You know?
What did you find was the best way to deal with that? Because it's certainly a tough situation.
We deal with it very much individually. I tell you the best outcome we had a person that was living next to a dumpster on Sanibel. And in our interactions with them, and we always bring in the social services, we found out the person actually was a veteran of the U.S. Navy and had never, ever had accessed his benefits. We have a doctor who lives on the island who volunteers over at the VA in Cape Coral, got him very involved. And the person found out he was actually eligible for a back payment from the Veterans Administration. He was very much in need of some medical attention. And probably one of the highlights of my career is he came back about 2 years later once and found me and thanked me for
That's amazing.
What we were able to do. And he actually still to this day lives in our public housing program on Sanibel.
Oh, so you have public housing over there. Can you tell us about how that came
we have
about?
a below market rate housing program. It's very much supported by the community. The city contracts with a nonprofit, Community Housing Resources, and our current vice mayor actually was the long-term board director, but the city's invested over the years significant funds as well as citizens.
Now, you talked about that being, a highlight of your career. What are some of the other, highlights? And then, what have been some of the challenges? I mean, 20 years is a long time to try to distill it down, but do your best.
Well, I'd say any given time, there's a couple things about Sanibel that are unique, and every city is a dot somewhere on that big world globe. Every city is unique. Everybody, and the one thing every city thinks
it's
is
unique.
that they're unique, and that their people are unique, and their business, and they all are. But Sanibel has an extra layer, and that's that we happen to be a world-class destination. There's 7 billion plus people in the world. If they all wanted to come to Sanibel, and some days in season, it seems like they all are on the same day. So there's challenges that come out of being a world-class destination. But I do believe, and not just me, not just our elected officials, but again, our public documents, our city charter and our codes, they're all about how do we protect the natural environment on Sanibel? And some people think, even sometimes when elected officials first get elected, they think it's about balance on Sanibel. How do we balance the human interaction with the natural environment? But on Sanibel, our Sanibel plan, which is another name for our comprehensive plan, on Sanibel, the pinnacle is the natural environment. And what we say is that is what we're protecting most. And everything else becomes secondary. So that has really stood us well. So on a day-to-day basis, back on, what's the highlight? The highlight, I think, is taking a community that protects the environment first, is a world-class destination, but yet provide what we believe is the highest quality, most efficient tax level for a great place to live. I mean, it's the quality of life issues. We are usually the 3rd or 4th safest city in the state of Florida any given year, crime-wise. We have excellent schools on Sanibel, but it's the things we do. When I first arrived in Sanibel, we did not have a single playground on Sanibel.
No way.
No playground. And we've obtained some grants and built one up at the rec center and things. So just some little things. When I ride around the island and say, what's different? Where we've been able to expand. We had some bike paths when we came, but we did not have the bike path network we do now, et cetera. So it's what our number one responsibility, besides protecting that natural environment, is how do we become a great town to live, even though we are a world-class destination. So that's where we put our emphasis at City Hall.
You mentioned the safest place. You have your own police department. How big is the police department, and at what year did it come in to?
That was one of the 2 main reasons the city incorporated, was to have their own police department. It's been my honor to work with 4 different chiefs of police. All 4 of them came from within our ranks. Our current chief is excellent, has been the previous one since I've been there and the ones I've appointed. But our current chief has been with the city for over 26 years. We have a strong emphasis on what, sometimes is a buzzword in the industry of community policing.
Yep.
And we we use techniques such as visibility and patrolling specific areas, what's called area checks on their reports, as a way to have a presence to try to minimize, crime issues. Because I do have people occasionally who say, Sanibel's so safe. Do we really need a police department? And I say, you don't understand.
That's why
we're
it's
so
safe.
safe because we have a very good police department. And of course, they're very, very much in the point when we do have an evacuation or a near evacuation due to hurricanes, et cetera. Our police department is very skilled in all of those areas.
How big is the police department? How many officers?
It fluctuates also because of season, and we have a very high percentage of civilian employees. If you've ever come to Sanibel and you enter during any type of traffic, you'll see traffic aides, but they are not armed, and they have radios. They're part of the police department, but they're civilian employees. So we typically lately been running 26 officers,
Wow.
which when you open,
Wow.
I never would have guessed that many.
No.
oh, but we 7 days a week, and
I
then
know,
there's a day
I-
someone's
I-
off, and you
yeah.
have one who's a
I just
school
think
re-
we hadn't really done the math of what
And
that
how many
would.
full
But
time?
we're programmed for 30. So to run, we're budgeted this year for 26. But if we are going to cover all of our services, we really would have 30 officers. And now we also occasionally get some part-time. We augment it in season, but you can't just bring people on, train them,
Sure.
and
Right.
turn them back out. You really have to have a trained.
And what's the
police force.
full time population?
Well, the last census, it was just over 6,000.
6,000.
Wow.
Mhm. But if there's a head in every bed, so if every condo's full, if you're building the sewer plant, you build it for 32,000.
Wow.
Now then in season, it's not uncommon to get another 3,000 cars on top of those 32,000 people who have driven on the island to,
So
enjoy the day.
I have been there recently during that time, and I appreciated the traffic, the folks helping with traffic, but it is there's just no easy way.
It's ride your bike is the easiest way to do it.
It's a couple hours. It
So
took a while.
So 26 officers, 6,000 people.
We're posing for pictures right now.
Sorry. I think the population down here is like 6,000 too. So you can see the struggles with not having a police department or talking about the community policing that Fort Myers Beach is going through.
And you need the number of resources and officers, but I'd also say a big part of it, and again, I've worked in a very high management position in very large cities with some very serious crime, but it's the old theory that you have to stop it before it spreads, and it's how you deploy. It's not about how many officers, that's a big part of it, but it's how you deploy them, how you train them, what you set as the priorities. Road patrol. I'll give you another example. When I arrived with the city, we had a motorcycle detail, but we had no beach patrol. We no longer have motorcycles. We no longer send officers to training for motorcycles, but we have a very aggressive beach patrol where we have officers on the beach.
So let's talk about turtles.
Sure. That's one of the things our police officers do when they're out with beach patrol is
arrest turtles.
No, they
protect them.
But in my tenure, we've arrested at least once, if not twice, someone for stealing turtle eggs.
Yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
What ding dong would do that?
Somebody who wanted to make turtle soup, or
Really?
turtles are a very, very precious commodity now, and a very much
There's
an
like a black
underground
market. Yeah.
There's a very active black market, particularly in Florida, and so some people actually steal turtle eggs and then incubate them for the turtle,
Or come and just take the turtles right off the island.
Yes, there's been some federal arrests in
Yep.
this
Wow.
region about turtle theft.
So how do you guys deal with the lighting situation? I have a feeling that your lights probably aren't as close to the beach, or maybe they are, than we had, because but Fort Myers Beach is trying to figure out the proper lighting for safety and for the turtles. And so how do you guys deal with
Well, the
that?
city of Sanibel has a very aggressive lighting program. We're one of the few designated dark sky communities in the United States. We meet the standards for being a dark sky community. And if you ever drove over Sanibel at night, or put a drone up, you'd see how dark our community is. And of course, part of that is because over 70% of our land is conservation land.
Mhm.
So in those areas, be it owned by the federal government, the city has some conservation land, and then some private sector with the Conservation Foundation. Those areas are not lit at all. So that takes 70% is done. And then in the residential areas, we have some very specific lighting. requirements. Some of it's in place all year round for the turtles about what has to be turned off, etc. And then some of it is in place year round. We have very strict requirements when properties are originally constructed.
Mhm.
It has to meet the dark sky compliance as far as the cutoff fixtures, what can be allowed, and then the Conservation Foundation and the city does tours at night before turtle season. So if we see a facility that some maintenance person put a non-compliant light up by accident last year or something, we get a hold of them before turtle season to make sure we do that. And then the city tries to be a model. We put up a beautiful American flag that we had a cell phone tower that was going to be installed, and people were concerned it was going to be ugly. So we worked with the phone company and had it the carrier and made it into a flag. And then as soon as the flag went up, it's illuminated 24/7. Everybody realized that could be a turtle deterrent. So during turtle season, all that comes off and we take the flag down. So, we try to be a model of that.
Is it all amber lighting?
It's not all amber, but it's all turtle compliant. But the biggest factor you can do, what we have found, is what you call cutoff fixtures.
Okay.
So you can have the illumination going down, but they usually look like a box, but they can be right. So the light bulb cannot extend below the fixture.
Got it. And so their shielding works.
Yes.
Okay. Got
Because
it.
it's about the light not going off or going towards the beach. So
You guys have like the community house and SCCF and
Ding Darling.
Ding Darling and
The Baileys.
Do
all
you
the
make it
Bailey
a point to hang out at Ding Darling at least once a week? And you seem like you're finding something different to take a picture of every time you're there.
Well, I personally, from last year, I went into my own personal lockdown on March 3rd. Well, the first briefing we had with the county emergency management center about the pandemic was on March 3rd. And that was just a day or two after the first case was detected in the cruise ships in Miami. There had been the cases in California at that point. And I came back and I thought, this could be bad. So I did a couple things personally to make sure things I didn't have to worry about. I cleared my calendar, briefed council, and from that date, March 3rd till June 20th of last year, I found myself working about 19, 18 hours. I was there most nights till midnight, 7 days a week. I try to do every city email, response. And again, being a world-class destination, we're trying to prioritize our residents, but the brides who had canceled weddings and the family reunions and I can get a flight, but I can't get this. And people are saying, if I came down, can I get into my home? Why are you allowing people to come? Why aren't you allowing people to come? So just a meat grinder of that, as well as we're an employer. So we're trying to push out policies for our employees. Are we going to let people work from home, not work from home? Who can work from home? And what if someone becomes positive in the workplace? How soon can they come back? And working through all those issues. So, and then I was in usually by 5 at the latest. So I was getting about 4 hours sleep. And on June 20th, of course, always the longest day of the year, sunrise. And I said, I've got to get out behind this desk. And I said, I haven't been to Ding Darling for at least a year or two. So I drove over there. And at that time, the feds had lifted all the gates and you could just drive in on the pit. And I drove in and nobody else was in there. And it was the most gorgeous, glorious sunset. I gotta get over here.
I gotta get out more often, right? Yeah.
So I really made a goal saying, even if I have to go back to the office for several hours in the evening, I have got to get out and get some fresh air and breathe the air and stretch my legs and arms because
be away from all that overstimulation.
Exactly. Because I've done hurricanes, I've done blizzards, I've done tornadoes, and meaning actual direct hits. And you can do that, at least I can, still for say 4 or 5 days. You cannot. I found it unsustainable for 4 months.
Yeah.
So I just really so then I just started saying, well, that's beautiful, and I'll post it, and people seem to respond.
They love it.
They
love it.
Yeah. And then I had a cousin's cousin write to me just recently and say, I just want you to know our pastor forwards, this is in Newark, Ohio, our pastor forwards your photos every day to the entire congregation as an inspiration. I'm like, oh, that's a burden.
Do you feel like the city, it's always easy to look back, and I'm sure you guys talk about it, how the city dealt with COVID? How do you feel like you guys did?
Well, I feel like we were a ship in just the choppy waters, and now we just came into the dock. So, we have, the The community has been extremely supportive. Again, we get a lot of people with opinions on every aspect of operating the city, and our council and our city hall administrative staff embraces those. So as you can imagine, during COVID, we had a lot of input, and I don't think everybody agreed with every decision, but in the long run, I think the community felt the city council made some very hard decisions, but they were very good. And one of the ones was that I think the community particularly responded to was when all of us in Southwest Florida were having these challenges about the beaches on the other coast being closed and getting this onslaught of visitors. Because of the physical layout of our beaches, we were able to keep the beaches open but close our parking lots. So people who could still bike to their beach, they could walk to their beach. So we did not have to do the aggressive close the beach and be policing that. But we were able to do a hard close on our parking lots.
The mask mandate on Sanibel, it seemed to me like if there was one city that was really behind it, because, you know, a lot of people had opinions on the mask, it was Sanibel. It seemed like there was one meeting that I think you had to interrupt because the governor was speaking during COVID, but the comments were just rapid fire. And I think that might even be in a time where people could call in their comments, and it was almost like 90% of the people said, yeah, even the business is right.
At least 90%. And it reflects our community. You
Right.
know, it's
When we went over there, I remember
right.
how much we commented on how everybody was following the rule.
And the first
You
thing
know,
you do
I
when you get
mean-
over the bridge is you see all the sign, put
Yep.
your mask on.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd say when it comes to turtle lighting, litter, paper straw, some of the, you know, we have some laws that other people think are a little quirky, mostly based to protect the environment. The people in stand-up, they reflect the values of the community. So it's not like people come and go, oh, I can't believe we are not allowed to feed the wildlife. No, we want to protect the wildlife, and you do that best by not feeding them. So we have a high compliance. Now, one of the things we put a high priority on is the education component as well. So that people understand what the rules are. And we always say when it comes to code enforcement, law enforcement, our number one goal is compliance. We're not, you know, sometimes somebody will write and go, well, you're probably glad you got that fine. We only fine someone as a very, very last resort if we cannot get compliance after many, many efforts. So we do not have a major revenue stream of parking fines, speeding tickets, or any kind of code enforcement. That is a minuscule portion of our budget.
Right. So we were talking around earlier today. I don't even know if any of this is true because I hadn't heard it, that somebody's considering raising the prices on the bridge in Cape Coral to $8 and on Sanibel to some. Did you hear anything about that?
That would be news to me.
Okay,
But the
all right.
county commissioners just at their last meeting on June 15th adopted the staff recommendations for fees and going forward and how they're going to man the toll booths and not where they're going to and things. So that was just adopted this last meeting, and I was not aware of any fee increase in there.
So it's still $100 to get over the bridge every day, or some. No, I mean it's $5.
$6. Right.
The thing that scares me about the bridge is not the $5 because is it $6?
Yeah.
Because I ride my bike.
But if you have a transponder, you get a
Yeah.
discount.
Well, I ride my bike over, but it's so close to the edge. It's frightening to me. I'm afraid of heights, and it's like I wish that thing was like a brick wall that you couldn't see over. But anyway, that's just a personal thing.
You know,
so
there had been, since it opened, there was one fatality, and it was a car that came left to center and hit a biker. And
she worked for us.
She worked for us. She was a friend of ours.
Oh,
it
I'm
was
sorry.
really
very
devastating.
terrible case. And so, you know, the design was one of significant public input, both by Sanibel and the county, but it's a beautiful facility.
Oh yeah.
And I
didn't
would
mean
say
to.
the bike lane.
No,
it's
huge.
a big
It's
bike
huge.
lane.
No, it's
You're
huge. I'm just afraid of cats.
He
I'm
makes
afraid
me
of the
ride
heights.
on the
Yeah.
outside so he can stay on the inside and not worry about it.
So what are you going to miss about the job?
Yeah, I'm going to miss, but I hope to quickly have it replaced is just the constant, you know, and I'd have to say the last, again, 17 months has kind of been dog years in city management. So I'm hoping to have a little more free time, go to some farmers markets and, you know, just do the things that old ladies like to do.
Do you know any
Go
old
to Ding
ladies?
Darling even more, right?
Exactly.
So
do some volunteer work.
Right.
Focus on-
you're planning to stay on the
I've
island?
made no plan. We have been so busy that, And my contract, the notice requirement was way shorter than what I gave because I wanted to give time for an adequate transition. I really love Sanibel and want to make sure the council has the time to, select who will be there next. And anything I can do to help with that process, I'm certainly prepared to do it. And I plan on no other, major vacations. I'm going to take a couple days here and there for some personal business, but I plan to be there till the end. I'm not a lame duck and in the chair and working until we get the budget passed. And one reason I picked the date I did was so we can get a budget adopted.
Yeah. And the council met earlier this week to talk about search committees. Did they pick one?
They did.
Okay, so the process starts now.
And the firm received a notice to proceed, so that process is started.
Okay, and you think somebody will be in place by what's
That'll
the date they're shooting?
council's
Okay,
decision.
yeah. Well, it's got to be a dream job too. I mean, to come down and live on Sanibel but it's got to be like you've been there for 20 years. How can that? You can't top that. Do you know any other town manager, city manager that's lasted 20 years?
Well, nationally, there are some, and there have been some other ones in Florida. But I received an award at my 35th, and from the International Association. And what's really different, there's very few people who've been as many years because of many local governments. You can retire after 30 years. Right. So once I hit 35, the group nationally is much smaller, but there was only 2 women, and
wow.
There was an article written when I hit 35 years in the field, and my nieces who are in their 20s, they go, it's unusual for women to be city managers. Like, well, not so much now, but like they never even, because their whole life I've been doing this work. So they didn't even I go, oh no, it was a very small club 40 years ago of women managers and women city managers. So, but in Southwest Florida, I know at least from Key West to Tampa, I'm by far the longest tenured city or county manager.
What's going to be the biggest challenge, if any, for Sanibel next few years?
Just keeping Sanibel. That's just a daily, I worked in a city with a lot of urban decay that was trying to come back and has to a much degree came back. And every day you are fighting decay, some aspect, crime, schools, education, outward migration. On Sanibel, it's the opposite. Every day you're fighting being overloved, and all that brings with it. So there was an excellent book several years ago, Overbooked, about just how world travel, the complications it creates everywhere once people find out a place and want to go there. And I mean, we're on so many lists of places to see.
Best beaches
beaches, a bucket list of every
Shelling
and weddings and family vacation and best sunset, which is all great. But it just drives, as our region and our area grows, which is great. And Sanibel's always had a red carpet out and a welcome sign, is managing and all that and keeping Sanibel.
So translation is don't muck it up, right?
Keep a good thing going.
Is there anything that as you depart, you're like, that's one thing I really wish I could have dragged across the finish line?
Oh, I personally have a little habit of every night. As they always say, do your gratitude, and I try to do that. But I do a self-reflection every evening, like what could I done better today, and what could I do better tomorrow, and what should be at the top of the list. So I have a day I have 20 years of things I could have done better.
Stop. Well, we appreciate you coming on. Anything else you want to share that we might have missed? I mean, we could talk to you for hours. It's been a
wonderful experience, and thank you. I know it took a while to get our calendars coordinated to get on here, and I literally was, it just seems like 20 years went by in a flash, and mostly because of the great people I've worked with on Sanibel.
And yet the communication that you have with, always responsive. Every time I send something, trying not to be a nag. You've always been helpful, even though that's not our main gig. We love Sanibel, and so I want to thank you for that. You explained the rules over there, and then in a way that made us understand what we needed to do, and so we appreciate all that. And good luck with everything. Thanks for your 20 years, and have some fun. Damn it.
And the last thing is for anybody out there who's a father, happy Father's Day weekend. It's typically the busiest day of the year on Sanibel at the beaches. A lot of people think it's spring break or whatever, but in Florida, a lot of local dads end up at the beach
and the golf courses. I would imagine,
and so we are a major destination. We've been doing a lot of work to get ready for tomorrow at our beaches, and we're going to have all the staff, all hands on deck, including myself. And so, happy Father's Day to everybody if you're on Sanibel, wherever you are.
Thank you. you, Judy,
Thank
for
you
coming
so
on
much.
so much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
weekend.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot. This is
Thank
Judy Zamamra, everybody, from
Wow.
Sanibel. 20 years as the city manager. I'll take care of this, dear,
Okay.
if you want to. And we wish her the best of luck moving forward with her retirement. And that was awesome to have her on. We've been working for a while to try and have her on, and that was great. Love having her on here. And we have movie trivia coming up, folks. Before we let you go, we also want to tell you about all natural bug spray. Kim was getting ready to go in the water, and she had the kayak on the truck, and she locked the keys in the car. And we have one of those keypads where you press the right numbers, and the bugs were attacking, and so she was kind of getting frazzled, but the bugs weren't biting her. Bye, Judy, because she had the Don't Itch It spray on, and the bugs were just being repelled off. They were just trying to get in her ears or up her nose, and they were just jumping away because she had the all-natural insect spray made with 100% essential oils that you can get at don'titchit.com or islandoilsllc.com. Bait and Wait is where they sell it. Like if you wanted to go into a store, I think they call that retail. Snook Hut Bait and Tackle, for goodness sake, and the Lighthouse Resort across the street and behind us. So get yourself some amazing smelling bug spray because the humidity brings out the bugs. And I was telling them about your experience trying to get the boat in the water that time. And it was the same way once when I had a flat tire, and John Lalo had to come pick me up because I was so far down on the fishingest bridge in the universe, and the bugs were attacking me, and I didn't have the spray, and they were going up my nose and in my armpits.
You literally cannot think. And really, if you want to torture somebody, do that.
Do what?
Because put them in an area where there's all those no-see-ums, because you will get all the information you need to extract just so they can get out of there. Because I mean, I couldn't figure out how to get back in the truck. I mean, I lost my mind.
And Debbie says she bought the bug spray from Island Oils, and the family visiting went on the tiki boat, and they made sure they say they heard about it. Look, she bought the Island Oil spray, and she went on the tiki tours. I mean, you can't have it any better than that unless you went to Shuckers or to Nervous Nellies or came here and had some chow.
As you remember, I believe it was not last year. It must have been the year before.
What?
That we went out on the tiki boat.
It was 1 year ago.
Day.
Father's Day tomorrow, 1 year ago.
Did we go out during COVID? I don't think we did.
Oh, you're right. Maybe it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. We went out. We had a great time. 90 minutes on the bay in this amazingly cute little tiki boat. Everybody taking your pictures because who wouldn't take a picture of a floating tiki boat?
Right.
They're located behind Parrot Key Caribbean Grill over there by Salty Sam's on the other side. The phone number is 239-887-0042. You can get up to 6 people. You bring your food, your drink. They have the cooler and the ice and the captain, and you set out onto the seas. So give them a call.
Nice how we transitioned from one sponsor to another sponsor. It was fabulous. So yes, bring your dad out. I don't know if they have any availability because they've been stinking busy.
I know
which is good for them. But maybe set up an appointment by calling 887-0042. And we appreciate those guys. They've been around for, I guess, about 2 years now since we were back out on table 23.
Close to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll look forward to seeing them. They haven't been down because they've been locked up in New York. So.
Yeah, but they're also working on something bigger that we can hopefully tell you about soon. We can't say it yet. Yeah, well, you're saying 2 weeks from now will be our 3rd anniversary. Did you know? Oh, no, I meant that's wrong. It's August 5th, not July 5th. Yeah, August will be our 3rd anniversary. Anyway, while we're chatting away, we want to make sure that you have 2 tickets to see your favorite movie at the Beach Theater. And we also are going to give away a $10 gift certificate to Mango Ritas as part of our movie giveaway. I'm going to hold it from you because usually you like to participate. All right, here we go. The Beach Theater, is located down the street on Estero Boulevard. And here's your question. And the first person that types in the answer in the chat box is going to win 2 tickets to the Beach Theater and also the $10 gift certificate. And this week's new release, the movie Queen Bee, stars Ellen Burstyn, Jane Curtin, and Anne Margaret. Wow, those are oldies. Yeah. Jane Curtin. Hey. Name the show, Jay. This isn't the question, but name the show, Jay. I didn't even know Jane Curtin was still alive.
Saturday Night Live.
Is it the same? I wonder if it's the same one, but yes. And Anne Margaret. What is she from? Like
Lots of things.
yeah, she was in,
yeah.
Humphrey Bogart movies. All right. In what 1964 film starring Elvis Presley did Anne Margaret play his love interest, Rusty? In what 1964 movie starring the King did Anne Margaret play his love interest, Rusty? Oh, this is going to be a name of a song, too?
That's what I was going to say. It's
So
the
this
name
is
of
gonna
a
be
song,
easy, yeah.
I'm guessing. And I know that my friend, Katie, would know the answer to this because she is obsessed
Big Elvis
with
fan?
Elvis.
Yeah.
Yep.
My mom was a big Elvis fan, too. I think. Wasn't my mom? Yeah. She was a big Elvis fan.
I think
Maybe
I
it was
know what
my
it
mom.
is.
Yeah, you don't want to give that away. And by the way, the folks down at the Beach Theater are hiring evening servers. So if you're looking for a job, if you need a job, Terry might need a job soon. Terry got bit on the nose by a pit bull.
Know.
How did that happen? You got bit on the nose by a pit bull. Were you down with, down trying to pet the pit bull? Were you drinking and you're down by the? She doesn't
short.
remember. She's short. I thought you said I'm sure. No, that's not right. Oh, John Lalo wants to go to the movies. You think John wants to take Debbie to the movies?
Aw, that would be sweet.
Yeah, for Father's Day, John can take Debbie to the movies. That's right, John Lalo. A big hand from our live studio audience. It's Viva Las Vegas, everybody. So
Actually, yeah.
Actually, they say they're hiring at the Beach Theater. I think it's pretty safe to say everybody's hiring right now. So, but if you want to work at the Beach Theater, they have a fine menu of food down there. You can call 765-3333. So, wait, Mitch. I missed Mitch. Mitch got it right. I'm not even paying attention.
John.
Everybody got it right. My bad, John. You're going to have to take your wife somewhere else because
Well, he could take her.
that's right. You can take her, but you're going to have to pay for the tickets. Mitch, all right. I know. I love Mitch. Mitch gets the tickets and the gift certificate, and we'll get in touch with you after the show, Mitch.
Snatched it right
I
out of
know where
John's
you
hand.
live, John or Mitch, so I'll be passing those tickets along to you. Did we cover everything today? Today's show was fantastic. Great guess. Did I do what? Did I do what?
Did you give away Margarita?
Yeah, I
thing, or
gave it
did
all
you-
together.
Oh, okay.
We gave
It's
it all
all
together.
All
Yeah.
right.
All right. Anything you want to talk about, or should we just sign off and say see you next week?
I guess I gotta go find a car.
That's right. We're car shopping now, everybody. So that has nothing to do with the show. But thanks to Judy for coming on.
We have a car for sale though, so hit me
All right.
up.
Go ahead and say what's the car? Put the car out there, dear.
It's a 2011 Kia Forte Coupe.
2011 Kia Forte Coupe.
I'll
It's
give
kind of
you a
like
good
a
deal.
first-time car for people.
Yeah.
What's your phone number that people should call? Or
239-209-7927.
all right. So if you're looking for a car, $80,000 for this mint condition Kia.
It is not mint condition, but it is in good condition for the fact that it's 10 years old.
Judy, thank you for coming on, and
Yes.
Chris, thank you for coming on. Two great guests and two awesomely successful people, and we love talking to successful people. We'll have more great guests for next weekend's show, episode number 171. Never know where we're going to be broadcasting from, so you'll have to
We're
tune
like,
in.
where in the world is Beach Talk Radio?
That's right. You'll have to tune in to find out, and then a special 4th of July show coming up, so stay tuned for that. All right, everybody, we will see you soon. You have a great Father's Day. Bye.
Yes, happy
bye.
Father's Day. I should have put that out sooner.
Beach Talk Radio.
Lee County Commissioner Ray Sandelli.
I wanted to thank you because when I started on this path from the governor, one of the first things I did was your podcast, and it was a lot of fun. And you asked me questions that made me think about what people wanted.
Beach Talk Radio.
Jim Nickel.
I did want to take a moment while I'm here to say thank you very much for your kind words during that election. I did have a chance to come up and say thank you right afterwards, and I do appreciate the opportunity to say that.
Beach Talk Radio.
Federal Judge Steve McGuire is here.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you for having me on the show. It's always great to be in Fort Myers Beach, and I'm honored to ask to be a part of such an acclaimed program.
Beach Talk Radio.
Dr. Wayne Edson.
I just want to say, Ed, that I support your show. I think you're providing a great service to Fort Myers Beach. Our local politicians may not always feel that way, but hang in there, because I learned a long time ago, politicians are temporary.